how to create all kinds of abstract designs, such as this, in Affinity Photo, using lighting as well as deform filter. So let's just remove these. I'm going to keep the black background. I think it works best with a black background. You could, of course, use any colour. But what I'm also going to do is just create another layer. So layer and new layer. And I'm going to fill that with a very basic gradient. You could, of course, fill it with all kinds of different gradients. Anything you've got in your swatches panel, or create your own. But once you've done that, I'd suggest resize it. Just make it a bit smaller than the black background. Because what I want to now do is I want to apply a deform effect to this. So just go to Filters and go down here to Distort and Deform. Unfortunately, it's not a live effect, so it's a destructive effect. So I'm just going to apply just your basic rigid, just set in there and using 100%. I'm just going to add some pins. Now make certain you're using the Move tool, because if you haven't, this is what happens. Rather frustrating new feature that I found in Affinity Photo. You definitely need the Move tool selected. Any of the other tools, for some weird reason, that filter does not work anymore. So Filters, Distort and Deform. And just add those pins, and then you can move them. Very odd feature. I do not know where that happened, because I'm quite certain in version 1 it didn't work that way. However, let's just move this around. You can distort this design all kinds of ways using these deforms. And you can play around with it for hours, just distorting it, pushing these things in, just pushing that in. And that's what I'm going to go with. Otherwise, I could spend hours on that. So I've got that design. Well, what I can now do is I can apply it again. And I always find that deform applied a couple of times quite often works. Interesting. You create this sort of effect. Actually starting to look like a face. Sometimes when you do these things, you don't know what you're going to get. Honestly, when I use it, I think could be anything. And you can distort it again and you can see the result there. And I'm going to go with that. And now what I can do, I can move it around. I can, of course, just duplicate it, hold down the Alt Option key, and you can see you can create straight away some very abstract backgrounds. Just using that. Maybe rotate it. And you can see, just create that. Straight away you've got the weirdest and wonderful abstract design. But what you can also do is you can use it with, say, layer effects. But you can also use it with lighting. Just go to Filters, Lighting, select that, and you can see the result of that. And you can move this around, so you can just change that. Now this is just applied to that single layer. None of the other layers are affected. So you can move it around. And the thing is, you can change colour. So you might turn around and say, oh, I want red there. And also you can add additional lights. Don't have to have just one. So add, so you've got two. Maybe move that around there. You can go this one and just drag it around, reposition it. Change the distance, change direction. Again, click on there, maybe set it to green. And you can see the result of that. You can move it around, reposition that. Unfortunately, there's no blend modes. That would be a brilliant feature if you could use blend modes to combine it even more. You can also add, if you want, texture. There is a load bump map. And you can see as you do that, you can see what happens. It just changes. I think it's quite a nice effect, just using the texture. And you don't have to load anything. Just use this. And you can also modify the inner cone there, as well as the outer. But I'm just going to keep it with that. And you can see then, click Apply. And this design, now I could have worked a bit more down here. You can, of course, vary this. You can apply all kinds of different lighting to all these designs. And, of course, you can always duplicate this design. Hold down the Alt Option key, duplicate that, resize it, and rotate it. So combine that as well. You can move it, position it anywhere. And, of course, you could also use blend modes. Don't have to keep it as is. You can see you just go through blend modes. You can create some very interesting combinations just by using blend modes. But I'm going to keep it as normal. I don't want to use blend modes, but just wanted to point out you can do it. Maybe apply some other effects. Filter, maybe repeat lighting. And you can see then the result applied like that. So that sometimes can be useful, just to repeat, apply. Also, if you want to create some very unusual effects, simply go down here. Go to Effects down the bottom, click there, and go for 3D. and then you can see you've got a 3D design, and you can push it too far. The radius, you can go, you'll end up losing that texture if you push it. If you go like that, and you can just ends up not looking great. I think it's just about there. It adds a bit. Also soften, you could of course soften it. I'm just going to keep it like that. You can change the direction. Personally, I'm just going to keep it. I think that looks really good. And also you can add some shadow. So outer shadow, just click there and highlight that. Make certain you change the offset and intensity. Now the shadow is not great. I mean, it doesn't particularly interact well with the other shapes. It's not a 3D program. It doesn't know that one is, say, a certain distance away or anything. It's just flat, basically. So when you apply it, click close, you can move this around. You can see you've got shadow, but it's not interacting with the shape. You could fake it to make it do that with a bit of effort, but at the moment it's not. I'd love to see that feature, and I would love to see that in the lighting. It would be brilliant if you could actually tell it there's layers below and how it all interacts. That would be superb. But again, you can hold down the Alt Option key and drag and duplicate that design. Maybe reposition it or resize it. Don't have to keep it the same size. Rotate that. Position it there. Just give different designs, different abstract designs can be created very quickly using this approach. And of course, you can always at any point simply select this, and now it's an effects. It's got effects there. You'll notice it's got effects. If you want to use it properly, I think, go to Layer, go to Rasterize, and then turn that off, Preserve Layer Effects. That makes it all become one single pixel layer instead of having that 3D. So now you can manipulate it again. Simply go to Filters. Again, you could go down here and you could use blurs, you could use distort, again, deform. Makes sense, you've got this move tool selected. Does seem to be an issue, don't know why. Filters, distort and deform, and you could deform this. So again, just select those, and again, this is only interacting with one layer, the layer that's selected, and you can just distort it just slightly. So just move it like that. You might want that design to be dragged over there, maybe just so it maps just nicely that line along there. Maybe click on there and just reposition that. You could do all kinds of distortions, or just undo. You do something you don't particularly like, always just undo it. And you can see as you go around, you can create all kinds of breaks in that design. Of course, you can push it too far. Click apply. And then you can go filter and repeat. And you can see the result of that. Maybe sometimes it doesn't work. You can always, of course, go to one of the other pixel layers, filter, repeat, deform, and distort that. And that can be distorted in the same way as that deform, and you can then reposition it maybe so it just follows around that design there and this design. And you can just create literally infinite amount of designs. And of course, at any point, you can always, of course, select all of them. And you can always then just go layer, and you can then merge selected or merge visible. Make it all into a solid pixel layer, which you can then manipulate, of course, further with lighting effects, selections, as well as using deform, maybe even more. Hope you found this tutorial of interest. Any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you much.